Welcome back, brothers and sisters. I am Braden. This guy over here is Tim, and thank you so much for finding The Second Legacy. This is the channel that we have collaborated on to help pass the Second Amendment on to the next generation. And today, we are going to talk about the litany of assault weapons ban, and there's some things that are different that we want to break in. I cannot wait to hear what you guys think in the comments below. Make sure you subscribe, like the video, and turn that notification bell on so we can get this news out to as many people as possible to affect positive change in the Second Amendment and get our rights to that next generation. So, with that, before we start anything, I've got to say hello to my friend over here, Tim. How are you doing? What's happening? How the hell are you?
Doing good, man. You know, let's just talk about the weather because we have this crazy weather going on where we have 60-mile-an-hour winds and thunderstorms. It's just the greatest time of year, and I'm sure people that watch the news realize that there's been a rip of tornadoes going across the Midwest, and we've had a bit of that ourselves. So
it's been windy.
Other than that, it's been great. It's been very windy, yes.
Other than the microburst and all the downdrafts and all that stuff, other than that, the destructive forces of nature, you know, we've got other things going on too, though, right? I mean, assault weapons bans? What's that about? Let's dive in. Let's just jump right in.
We do. You know, we always have an assault weapons ban that's looming somewhere, don't we? It just seems like that. Yeah, it seems like every day you wake up, it's like, oh, look, another state's trying to pass an assault weapons ban. What are we up to, 10 now that are working on it or have done it?
Yeah, it's around that number, 9 to 10. But as we get into this, because what we're gonna draw here, obviously Tim and I are kind of leading into this a little tongue in cheek, but what we're gonna dive into is the differences between two assault weapon bans that met two completely different fates. Because as Tim was alluding to, yeah, there's a lot of people going after assault weapons bans, but the interesting piece is it's only the deep blue bastions. Everywhere else, freedom is growing. I mean, we just got to our 27th state for constitutional carry in the United States 2 days ago through Nebraska. So it's a very interesting juxtaposition, but I tell you what, let me jump in here. Let me set this up and then we'll dive in, all right? So, Mr. Producer, could you throw up 1.5 for me? We're going to hit the most egregious offender first. This is Washington. Washington's set to become the 10th state to ban assault weapon sales. And then if you could go to number 2, I want to highlight something really quickly. Here's the details. The bill defines assault weapons to include more than 50 named types of military-style firearms, plus others with features such as telescoping stocks or extra hand grips. Don't worry, Tim's going to have something on that in a second. The bill won't stop people from owning the weapons if they already have them, but it will ban new sales and distribution of the firearms, as well as manufacturing and importing them. Exceptions will be made for police agencies and branches of the military. So before we even go to the second state, there's so much in this one snippet. Tim, I know you got some stuff you want to say about telescoping stocks and hand grips.
Flippy things that go up in handguards. Can't have those things because, you know, if you can hold your rifle and shoot it safely, that's a problem. We got to take away those handguards. It seems like they
totally different, right?
Right. Well, they're going after cosmetic features yet again. And what's funny is they talk about, well, we've banned over 50 military-type firearms. Mm-hmm. You do understand every single firearm that's ever been designed or used has at some point wound up on a field of battle somewhere.
At some
Bolt
point.
actions, everything. Muzzle loaders.
Knives. And swords.
Swords, yes. And so this whole weapon of war thing and assault weapon, military assault weapons, and all of the names they give these things, what they're saying is, we just don't want you having a modern self-loading rifle. Because if it loads itself and only fires with one pull of the trigger, well, you might be able to do nefarious things with that, so let's just take that away from you. Yep. And they're not even banning all semi-automatics. They're just banning the ones that look a certain way. They don't care about the function of the gun. They're worried about the appearances of the gun. Bayonet lugs, muzzle devices, handguards, flippy things that go up, stocks that move in and out. Doesn't change the lethality. I always put an extra ethy in there. Lethality of a firearm. It just doesn't. And
evil features, man.
It is. It's just this evil feature list that they've been doing since the 1994 crime bill, and it never changes. And another thing that always just warms my soul, and I'm being facetious, is, you know what, we're also going to carve out an exemption for military and law enforcement. Oh, how nice of you.
Yep.
Mr. Government, you can have your military weapons, and police, the people that we hate in Washington State that we want to defund, well, we're going to give you the most lethal weapons that we can find that we want to ban from everybody else because we trust you so much. The hypocrisy of these people is through the roof.
Well, and I think it's not only hypocrisy, and this is the point where this gets really important to break this down. So if you guys are watching this, this is the part, this is one of those note pieces that's so crucial in this argument for anybody who might be for assault weapons bans or common sense gun reform, as they like to say it, this doesn't make sense. Like on any level, break this down for what you're used to hearing from the gun control side of the argument. ARs, assault weapons, weapons of war, military-style rifles, whatever nomenclature you want to throw out there, their entire purpose in their state is, or in their statement is, those need to go away. They're the cause of the problems. And if you understand that, okay, they want to take those things away. Going away from everything that we're about to talk about. On the base level, they're saying that those are the cause of the problems. So what do they do in every single assault weapons ban that comes forward? They say, you can keep the ones that are already there.
That's right.
And
it's like, I wanted to raise my hand. I know. If you got them, you can keep them. They're so dangerous. We're going to ban the sale of them, but you can have the other 20 million that you already have.
Right. And genuinely, if you're watching this, ask yourself that question. Because a lot of the times, our knee-jerk reaction is immediately to go to, shall not be infringed, you cannot do this, this is unconstitutional. All those things are true. But if you look at actually what their arguments are and then what they put forward, it does not gel. Again, just to reiterate high level, and I'm going to hit the thing on what Tim said in a second about the military and the police. On one level, these are all the problems. Everything wrong in our society with gun violence, which is their term, is because of these things, which is not only not factually true, it's also a marketing piece. But then at the exact same time, when they pass the assault weapons ban, you get to keep them. What was the point? If this was originally your intent, why did you just go back on everything that you just said? Because they can't take them, and we're going to go into that in a second. But that's Washington State. You want to introduce Colorado, Tim?
Oh, well, Colorado decided that they're not going to pass. They didn't even get their assault weapons ban out of committee.
That's
so
right.
Unlike Washington State, they just said, you know what? This is going nowhere. We're not going to do this. And they didn't even send it to the floor for a vote. So you have two states that have been trying to do this for some time, been talking about it and, telegraphing their next move. They've, desperately wanted to do this in Colorado. This isn't Colorado's first rodeo. They had their magazine ban. They've been toying with the stuff for a long time. But they also have a number of constitutional sheriffs in the state of Colorado that absolutely refuse to enforce these laws coming out of their legislature. So, I think what we're seeing here, obviously it's a difference of voting within the state legislatures, right? So the big difference between the two states is just that Washington State got a little further along than Colorado did. They're both trying to get to the same place. And I know that we differ a little bit on this opinion, but to me, it's incrementalism yet again. And what we're seeing in the case of Washington State, going back to your statement about, well, why didn't you ban them all? Why are you just banning the sale and production, but leaving the existing guns out there? Well, it's because they know they can't get through that right now. They have the votes. I don't think they have the votes to do something like that because, after all, you're talking about taking away hundreds of millions of dollars in property from people, and nobody's going to sit by and let that go down right now anyway. They don't have the political capital to do it. So they're going to do the incrementalist approach. They're just going to take what they think they can get. They're going to try to run around the interference they might get from the Supreme Court and the Bruin decisions and things like that. So they're not going to go that far and bring that heat. They're just going to get what they can slip through right now that may test or might pass the sniff test in the federal courts, may or may not. They're going to take that gamble. But they're just going to get through what they can get through today and then hope Gen Z comes up in the next few years and their voting bloc will then give them the political capital to go to the next step, which would be confiscation if they could get that. And so that is their end goal, I believe. I think that's where they're trying to get, obviously, this whole notion that they say, well, we don't really want to take your guns away like David Hogg. Look, I'm shooting a shotgun. I started doing this yesterday. I'm a gun guy.
I'm
I don't
one
want
of
to take
you.
your guns. Yeah, I'm one of you. I took Double Barrel Joe's advice and got an over and under, and I've been hanging out at Harvard shooting skeet. And it's all nonsense. They put this lie forward that they don't want to take them away. And they say, well, look, we just passed this assault weapons ban. We didn't take them away. We just said you can't buy any new ones. That's today. I'm not stupid. I've watched you guys for far too long.
No. And this is the interesting part, because this is actually, we were talking about this before the show, and I'm really excited to get to this point, because this is where Tim and I have not a disagreement on the destination. It's obvious what they want to do. 100%. They want to take these guns. I think it's a matter of what gets in the roadblock, like what blocks them from doing this. So now let me kind of bring forward my position on this. I completely agree with what you just said about incrementalism. They have been doing that since 1930s. The progressive wing of the American government, that's all they do is incrementalism. They want to put that frog in that pot and slowly turn it up until they achieve what they want. That is established fact, put that baby to bed. It's a thing. However, this is where I think it's interesting, because while you see the incrementalism and the next step taking firearms from people in actual confiscation, I see that as a sign of weakness. And then if you guys are watching this, let us know what you guys think of this different opinions down in the comments field. Because what I see here is that's admitting that they don't have the constitutional authority to go as far as they want. And they don't want that bill to be thrown out immediately and be put under constitutional review instantly. Because the big secret on the gun control side is they have to go just far enough where they can please the base, they can get the Democratic votes, they can get the gun control momentum, but they can't go so far to get struck down, because if they get struck down, that door is shut forever. A good example would be the Bruen decision. When the Bruen decision came down, the states had gone too far on saying may issue versus shall issue. I might give you a concealed carry permit. The Supreme Court said that's not legal. And now they're scrambling across the board to try to find a new solution that's still, we're going to give it to you, but we just got to find the right amount of infringement that we can do. I think that's kind of a microcosm of what we're looking at. Now, if you back out a little bit further, Illinois, Measure 114 in Oregon, you've got New Jersey, you've got California with Gavin Newsom and Judge Benitez coming down. The juice is going against assault weapon bans across the board. Illinois got to stay immediately because they allowed military and police to have them, just like this one that went through in Washington. Oregon 114 got smoked because the entire thing was unconstitutional at a state level. New Jersey's got smoked at a state level for unconstitutionality as well. I think they want to do it. I think the actual takings clause of the U.S. Constitution, I think the confiscation idea will be too costly, and they could not achieve it. And I think that's why they do this. They're hoping on just natural attrition, breaking these things over time, and then they achieve it, which goes back to the original point of I thought these things were the bane of existence across the board. That's my opinion anyway.
I think we're pretty much aligned. I think we're just, I don't know, bickering over semantics here, because I agree they didn't go as far as they did because they can't. I mean, they don't have the political capital at the state level, and they don't have the support of the Supreme Court, and they are worried about getting it struck down. But I think what they're doing is the incrementalist approach. They're going to take what they can get now. And like I said earlier, they're just waiting for Gen Z to come up, because they will get their Supreme Court appointments at some point down the road, and they're hoping that they can get to a place where they can get their confiscation, because I do think that's the end goal. I don't think they're ever going to just say, well, we've banned the production, good enough. They're going to say, look at this, we banned the production and sale, and you guys are still out there using them in crimes, so now we just got to take them away. But they got to get to a point at the court level and at the state level where they have the capital to pull it off. They're not there yet. And so I think that's what they're trying to do. They're just inching towards that end, and they're just biding their time until they can get where they need to be.
Was that a presidential pun? Did you?
I was thinking the exact same thing when I said it, but I wasn't going to call it out. But thank you for doing that. Yes, it was. It was a pun. Pun intended.
That was a good one.
Biden.
That was a good one. So now here's a question.
Biting,
here's a follow-up.
Biting.
You're biding your time.
Biting time versus Biden time.
No, I like it. Biden time.
Midwest
it's very
in
slow.
me, man.
It's very slow. Okay, not a joke. So here's a follow-up question on that. This is an interesting one. Do you think, because what you were just mentioning was you were talking about alluding towards the presidential, the executive, and the actual legislative turning deep blue because Gen Z comes in and they've got their own problems. You're talking about judicial appointment through the executive branch. You are not talking about actual constitutional amendments. Am I correct? Is that what you're referencing?
Yeah, they're gonna do everything they can through the bench. They're not going to try a constitutional amendment. That's a real high hurdle.
Oh,
right?
Absolutely. That's
they can use activist judges to get to where they want to be. That's been proven out, true in other court cases. That the courts sometimes just decide not what the law says, but what they think society wants, and that's completely wrong. But that's what they do sometimes. I mean, we see it all the time in the federal courts, and the Supreme Court's supposed to be the final arbiter of that and say, you know what, you can't be doing this. This is the way it needs to be. But all they need is a couple of appointments to the Supreme Court, and they get the activist judges. They go right back to doing what they want, and law be damned.
And that's, I love these conversations because we could right now spin off into like 4 different topics that are happening right now that are so crucial. But those are for another time. You want to take us out, and then we will see him on the next one?
Absolutely, folks. Please stay politically engaged. Get out there, vote, send letters, make phone calls to your elected representatives at the state and federal levels, because it's absolutely critical for us to stay in the fight, for us to maintain our freedoms. Freedom isn't free, and there's always going to be people out there trying to take it from us. So we always have to be willing to fight for our rights. With that being said, thank you for watching The Second Legacy, and we'll talk to you guys soon.